The thoughts, opinions, and general overall shade thrown on High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers and not those of High at 9 News, its audience, or its advertisers. The statements made do not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice, and for advice tailored to your specific situation, please consult with a licensed professional. Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your host, Jason Beck, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us.
We could absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, January 14th, and today is a National Ratification Day.
Ratification of what?
Of our nation, Dale. The ratification of
we
our
signed a
nation.
treaty. We ratified things.
Articles of Confederation, the Constitution, what?
Hold on, Dale. I'm gonna pull it up. Give me 1 second.
It better not be the damn ass Confederation.
Oh, stop it, Shaun. Oh.
I swear to God, y'all get me on this morning, and that's the first thing we're talking about. I'm gonna go. I'll go off later.
I'm gonna go off later. Oh boy. Let's see.
I'm gonna go off on some
Yeah. Ratification Day on January 14th recognizes the act that officially ended the American Revolution. The day commemorates the ratification of the Treaty of Paris on January 14th, 1784, at the Maryland State House in Annapolis, Maryland, by the Confederation Congress. After the Declaration of Independence was signed, nearly 8 years passed before the British and the Americans agreed to a ceasefire. As part of that Treaty of Paris, Great Britain recognized the United States as a sovereign entity.
Dang,
Shall I continue?
Terrible at signing deals and not recognizing ceasefires just historically. We sign a deal, we don't do it.
That's not necessarily us, but
yes,
I see what you did there.
go.
That was cute. That was cute.
I'm into the U.S. The ratification of the United States. That's fine.
I mean,
that union at that time.
We are the greatest country in the world, Shaun, that has ever existed.
We have the potential to be.
No, we are. No, we are. There is no potential in there. We are. There is no doubt about it. Shout out to the Department of War that's just over there crushing things right now. Also, it's National Dress Up Your Pet Day today, Shaun. Are you going to put your little doggies in some little doggy outfits?
I would never do that. Mine are ranch dogs. I would never do that to my girls. They're allowed to run wild and free. They only barely ever have a collar on out here. So, Nope. But to everyone who likes to dress up their poodles, go for it. Do it as long as they like it. If the dog likes it, I love it.
What if the dog, how do you really know if your dog likes it or not?
You can tell if your dog has contempt for you. You know when your dog likes you and when your dog is like, this motherfucker.
I mean, you spend enough.
Right outside your bedroom door. That's when you know he has contempt for you.
I don't know. Because, sometimes the dog could think that they look like an idiot, but at the same time, they feel warmer. Because, baby, it's cold outside.
Yeah. I did used to dress up. I had a tiny 2.5 pound Yorkie, like the size of a Coke can.
Mm-hmm.
And I had an Alaskan Malamute too. And when they would go out potty, in New York, I would put little booties on the Yorkie and a sweater just because she physically needed it. She couldn't regulate the temperature.
See what I'm saying?
She was a Yorkie though. I would never dress my Shepherds or my Dobermans up. They're meant to look scary. They're not going to greet you at the gate with a sweater.
Sounds like discrimination.
I used to dress my Doberman up for Christmas.
Yeah. I think that's discrimination, Shaun. You dress up one pet but not the other.
that
Yeah.
has passed. The other girls wouldn't stand to be dressed, so they're
There
not
you go.
discriminating. My dogs are spoiled.
Sounds like
My dogs,
discrimination to
you
me.
see, my Malamute used to have a raw diet. Like, she was eating better than me most of the
You had a
time.
Malinois? You had a Malinois?
I had an Alaskan Malamute. She was
Oh,
like
Malamute.
120 pounds. She was gorgeous. We love her. Juno. She passed away a couple years ago, but
Of course she was Alaskan and you named her Juno.
I was beautiful.
you catch that? You catch that, Chris? I seen that over there. Yeah.
In Anchorage, maybe, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Juno is a great name.
Oh, it was
for
an
her.
anchor
She
dog.
was a goddess.
It was an anchor dog.
Very androgynous.
Yeah. It's also, I think you'll enjoy this one, Chris. It's also National Hot Pastrami Sandwich Day. So you know what I have to say?
Yeah.
Get out there and make him a sandwich. Yeah. And thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. You can look up above and down below to see exactly where we live on the internet. And we are live every Monday through Friday on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, X, Instagram, Facebook, Kick, as well as on our very own website at www.high9news.com. So welcome to everyone joining us from any one of those platforms. And man, oh man, you guys, the Ohio Attorney General, he rejects a petition to repeal cannabis law changes, you guys. That's right. Ohio Attorney General Dave Yost has rejected a petition seeking to repeal the state law that authorizes changes to Ohio's medical adult use marijuana laws, ruling that the proposal summary would mislead voters, you guys. The petition aimed to repeal sections 1, 2, and 3 of Senate Bill 56, which was signed into law by Governor Mike DeWine last month. The legislation bans all forms of low-level THC intoxicating hemp products, including beverages. Yost said he received the referendum petition and summary on December 29th. And under Ohio law, the Attorney General must determine whether a petition's title and summary are fair and truthful statements of the measure to be referred. And Yost said the submission failed the test. He says in a quote, "Upon review of the summary, we identified omissions and misstatements that, as a whole, would mislead a potential signer as to the scope and effect of SB 56, Yost wrote in his response letter to the petitioners. In the letter, Yost outlined several specific issues, including inaccurate descriptions of how the law defines hemp, what types of cannabis delivery are permitted, and the role of local governments. He said the summary incorrectly claimed the bill allows delivery of adult use cannabis, and when the law only authorizes delivery for medical cannabis patients. In a quote, he says, "Nowhere in the bill is the Division of Cannabis Control authorized to adopt rules on the delivery of adult use cannabis, calling the summary inaccurate and misleading." But Yost also said the petition misstated the law's impact on local government authority, suggesting cities and municipalities could prohibit activities that state law allows. In a quote, "In reality, the law does the opposite," Yost wrote, noting that Senate Bill 56 explicitly prohibits local governments from limiting activities authorized under state cannabis law. The Attorney General further took issue with claims about taxation, saying the summary wrongly suggested local governments should levy an excise tax on adult use cannabis sales. SB 56 explicitly prohibits local governments from levying an excise tax on the retail sale of adult use cannabis, Yost wrote. Well, sounds like they sent these guys, these activists, backpacking to the drawing board. Sounds like they were misrepresenting some things. But I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this. It's all semantics, right, Dale?
Shocking, right?
Yeah, exactly.
People might be less than honest and truthful about this.
I am telling you.
But when you pass laws on these initiatives, you can tie the hands of the legislature. I think that's concerning, that people should understand what they're doing. And then if they want to do it, fine.
Yeah. I mean, Doesn't look like they're going to get any repeals on the hemp ban anytime soon in Ohio, based off of this and this apparently fraudulent language these activists put together.
Well, hemp is just still up in the air. In between now and the time the federal hemp legislation runs out, there's going to be a lot of people trying to do a lot of things. And it really isn't hemp. The intoxicating cannabinoids from hemp that they're worried about. No one gives a shit about whether you make a sail or a pair of jeans out of hemp, or if you feed the seeds to your chickens.
Yep.
They're concerned about intoxicating hemp products, and the mess was created by people who didn't know what the hell they were doing.
It was. That is for sure. What do you think about this, Chris?
I think they're going to find some resistance.
Oh yeah, they're going to find
Chris.
some resistance. Go ahead, Shaun, please.
Well,
Ladies first.
I mean, obviously they're going to find resistance, but we're getting news this week that the hemp ban is going to likely be extended. A Republican from
we're going to talk about that. That's on the federal side. That's on the federal side, and we're going to cover that. We're going to cover that whole issue.
It's on the federal side, but it's still going to affect Ohio and these other markets. We're leaning on that in Texas a little bit.
It's not going to affect this Ohio ban because the states have the right to ban it if they want, and this is a state ban.
I totally agree. I still think that it gives policymakers some cause for pause, and it does open up the door for litigation. So, yes, it's happening, and they have been trying to ban this stuff for a really long time. We'll see how much is actually executable by the end of this year.
Not they're trying. They did it. Ohio did it, and these guys are trying to repeal it right now. Go for it, Chris.
I thought the petition was for, didn't it say medical and adult use in the beginning?
Well, no, they included that language in the petition, and they were outlining that was an additional reason of why they banned this language.
Yeah, it's I feel like the hemp ban on the federal level has kind of initiated all these prohibitionists, like in Maine, Ohio, all these places. They're kind of coming out of the woodwork right now. Everyone is, all the naysayers have been activated, so to speak. I think they're just chasing their tails. Don't we have better things to do? Is there really
better things to do in Ohio? I mean, is it really from a moral, standing ground, or is there someone looking to benefit financially some other way in the longer term? Well, basically what they did with their thing is they said, you know what, all these stores can't sell intoxicating hemp products. All the hemp products can only be sold within the medical framework. Right. And so therefore that knocks out like all the big box stores from being able to sell beverages, and knocks out all the gas stations and all the smoke shops from being able to sell like THCA flower or gummies. Or now all they're left with, Shaun, is to sell psilocybin mushrooms.
This is the thing that gets to me is like
or analogs of
they're trying to ban it, but it's not. It's not actually banned. Yes, by law. Yes, it's banned, but is it gone? Is it gone?
No, no way.
It's not gone. It's still there. They're not actually banning it by saying it's not safe or healthy. They're saying there is validity to this product, and we want it for the medical licensees exclusively. I don't know enough about Ohio's medical licensing process. I haven't really looked into it. I'll be quite frank. I have no interest in ever locating myself to Ohio, so it's not something that I've really thought about. I'm from Minnie in Texas, and I stay Minnie, Texas, and New York. That'll do it for me, or somewhere else. But Ohio, this is it's just regulatory capture. It'll obviously get litigated, and advocates are going to have to really tighten up their arguments, because the arguments and kind of policy that we used to submit years ago, even just like a few years ago, even just 2 years ago, what you would submit to legislators or lawmakers or in your lawsuits isn't, you're going to have to refine your arguments now because they've turned up the notch. So you have to get smarter and sharper, and you have to have a better argument. You can't turn in sloppy work, and you should expect that they're going to use all of their power to try to shut you down or disqualify you through whatever means possible, even technicalities. So you really do have to be impeccable and impeachable, and you have to be able to present your arguments in a way that that they're bulletproof. And I know that's a tall order, but that's what must be done if you're going to do this. Otherwise, you're going to spend a lot of money litigating or trying to pass law through advocating and community grassroots efforts. But if your grassroots effort at the end of the day doesn't have a legal sword or shield that's checking it, then you are spending a lot of money in marketing and grassroots, but you're not going to get that end result because you don't have that last component. And you do have to have all of those things. It's going to mean that the hemp market needs to work together. And I'm not going to judge or pass any judgment. I'm not intimately familiar with the Ohio hemp market. I know that we do here in Texas have our moments where we work together, but we also sometimes work against each other. And that's we're going to have to get better if we want to do better.
Well, here's the thing, Dale. You know what I think ultimately, Dale? What it ultimately comes down is they obviously need a better lawyer, because a better lawyer would have wrote a better draft of this to submit. Obviously,
well, they're trying to obfuscate. They don't want to be honest and blunt. I think that's Shaun's point. I mean, I think people are ready for the facts. Okay, even if you don't like them, ready to be told the truth. And if your mama told you that truth hurts, then mama lied to you. Get out of the way. Life is not always what you want it to be. And one of the problems we have today is just basic integrity and honesty. And attorneys are supposed to be held to the highest standards, but I've heard some whoppers stretching shit to the point of breaking, and you're not supposed to do that, but here we are. People tell you things and you have to go double, triple check because can't just trust what people tell you anymore.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, on that, we're going to roll into
the retailers, just one aside. Retailers in all markets, hemp, marijuana, whatever. If you wanted to get a good lawyer to put it together, I have to say, you will have to all come together and invest the money into it. Because what I often see is that there are advocates who are putting together this policy work, including a person like myself. Yes, I have experience working for the government and I do know how to speak some people's language, I am not actually a formally trained lawyer. I'm a mediator. So I come in to broker the deal. You should still have an attorney that the whole team has invested in. You're paying for them to double check your work. And I often find that when it comes to actually putting money towards these fights, sometimes retailers are too scared to invest in that. And if you're spending a lot of money on stupid fucking events or going to MJ Biz,
too many F-bombs already. Too many F-bombs. That's already two today. All right.
I'm a veteran, and we say that word a lot.
I bet.
I'll work on it. If you're going to keep investing into going to events, MJ Biz, other things, you need to take that same portion and invest that into protecting your industry, for the love of God. If you're not doing that, you have no business. If that's not your first step, you have no business spending anywhere else, because you have no way of guaranteeing your survival at all. And you're not even willing to invest in it. And that often ends up being the issue, is that you have these advocates putting paperwork together and no one is actually paying them or paying an attorney to do the final checks to make sure this is bulletproof. And that's your number one mistake.
The thing about it is that most of these people aren't politically savvy enough to even understand any of this. And you have just these... rule number one, I'm just going to say rule number one, and that's all I'm going to say. And if you can't figure out rule number one, that proves that rule number one is rule number one. Just saying. And on that, we're going to go to our first commercial, and we are going to be right back. And we are.
I get when I go to Vegas.
Oh man, you guys, we are back. Man. Shaun, this story is for you. Okay, because
I'm scared.
You should be afraid. Be very afraid, because the great red state of Texas is set to ban smokable cannabis as soon as January 25th, Shaun. That's right. The Department of State Health Services is considering new rules for the Texas hemp industry that would require child-resistant packaging, stronger warning labels, sharply higher fees, and effectively ban smokable flower and extracts. Smokable cannabis products sold legally across Texas could disappear by the end of the month under a proposed state rules that would redefine how THC is measured and dramatically raise costs for hemp businesses. The Texas Department of State Health Services has drafted sweeping new regulations for the hemp industry, including... why did it repeat that? Anyways, the recall procedures and fee increases of roughly 10,000% for manufacturers and retailers. Under the proposal, posted online for public comment the day after Christmas, annual fees for hemp manufacturers would jump from $250 to $25,000 per facility. Retailers would be required to pay $20,000 per location each year, up from the current $150 registration fee. The proposed rules would still allow for edible hemp products like gummies and drinks containing Delta-9 and Delta-8 potent cannabinoids such as THCP. Those products would be required to carry warning labels, clear dosing instructions, and web links to independent lab tests showing the concentration of active ingredients and the presence of any heavy metals, pesticides, or microbial contamination. More than 9,100 retail locations in Texas are registered to sell consumable hemp products, and according to state health records, an emergency rule adopted in September prohibited sales of hemp products to people under 21, even though many, if not most, stores already carded customers. State health officials drafted the new regulations in response to an executive order issued by Governor Greg Abbott on September 10th, directing state agencies to develop new rules governing what Texas calls consumable hemp products. The order followed a statement in the legislature where lawmakers failed to agree on whether to regulate mind-altering hemp compounds or attempt another outright ban, and in June, Abbott vetoed the initial bill prohibiting THC products that had been championed by Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. Under Texas law, hemp is defined as cannabis containing no more than 0.3% Delta-9 THC and the primary psychoactive compound in cannabis. The definition was adopted by state lawmakers in 2019 and closely mirrored federal legislation passed the year before. Neither state nor federal law explicitly banned THCA, and a naturally occurring cannabis compound that converts into Delta-9 THC when heated or smoked, and even in states where marijuana is legal and most of the Delta-9 THC in smokable cannabis starts as THCA. The proposed rules would include THCA amounts in the calculation of Delta-9 levels and a change that would effectively outlaw most smokable hemp products. During a public hearing on Friday morning, DSHS Commissioner heard from dozens of small hemp business owners and cannabis users, and many said they supported stricter packaging rules and age limits, but objected to the effective ban on smokable products and the sharp increases in licensing and registration fees. In a quote, "Those proposed fees don't regulate small businesses, they eliminate them," Estela Castro, owner of Austinite Cannabis Co., told commissioners. "This proposal would force me to close despite doing everything right." Several speakers accused the health department of exceeding its authority by attempting to redefine THCA as Delta-9 and changing Delta-9 total THC is a legislative function, not administrative, said Jesse Mason, owner of San Antonio Hemp Store, and Reggie Dro. Then they also said, by counting THCA prior to heat, you are banning products the legislature legalized. A handful of speakers testified in full support of the regulations and called on the state health department to go even further. And they say, "Thank you for increasing licensing fees. The more difficult it is for the industry to addict users, the better. Age limit should be higher than 25, said Christine Scruggs, an anti-THC activist who said her son had developed psychosis from cannabis use and required medical treatment to recover. Dr. Lindy McGee, a Houston pediatrician who spoke at the commission on behalf of the Texas Medical Association and the Texas Pediatric Society, called for stricter labeling requirements, including statements that THC can be habit-forming and take more than 2 hours to kick in. And there's also label warnings. They say that the label warnings should be easily recognizable and large enough for a grandparent who is babysitting to be able to tell that the gummies are edibles and not something they should be giving their grandkids. She said, that's another thing we see in the emergency department. But state health officials can still revise the rules based on public feedback, and the regulations could take effect as soon as January 25th, or the department could delay or phase in enforcement. The drafted rules would not affect the state's medical marijuana program, which was expanded in 2025 to allow for 15 dispensaries statewide, up from 3. Shaun, I know you're going to have a lot to say about this. Let's just go for it. What are you going to say?
First off, Estella definitely has more spunk in her,
okay.
her voice, but you're great. You actually got Jesse pretty on point.
Okay, all right.
Ironically enough, y'all do the same kind of, hardline.
Yeah.
Kind of talking.
Hardline.
Yeah, there you go. I am giggling because I actually just found a lighter and lit some of that THCA flower on fire. This is, I know people are freaking out, and you should be freaking out. And I apologize for being a little bit too lighthearted right now. There is other stuff in the background that I'm thinking about. But it's also that I'm not taking this too hard right now. And I probably shouldn't be so cavalier about it. Retailers are really worried, and they should be. But I do think that Dishes is going to come back with some kind of extension. This is purely my speculation, though. But there were so many folks who were there and testified. They received over 245 written comments. I think you can still submit comments. I have folks who are asking me to look into it, draft some materials together for them. I definitely will. I was there, I testified, and I talked about this, that we're likely going to see the hemp extension on the federal level, and that I understand that they want to create parity, and I'll be sure we'll post up on High at 9 my testimony so you can get that full thing. I love it. They wanted to save gummies and beverages because they did create language that would do that. So I'm sitting tight. I am invested in beverages, and I do love it. And I want to see that happen, but I'm also invested in just as much in the hemp market on the medical cannabis side. So when you mention those 15 licensees, I do often like to go and testify to the fact that I am here to actually help everyone. Medical licensee, hemp operator, building that transition, federally to get marijuana and hemp and build some parity so we can have a mom and pop's adult use industry that big corporations can still participate in, but so can small players. And we can have interstate commerce like we do in hemp. There. And we can do this an easy way. So most of my testimonies, typically, that I did do it a little different this time, Dale, you'll like this one. I gave them a litigation proof strategy. Was my document that I gave them. My litigation proof strategy, I told them TABC really liked it because it was TABC committee members who told me the best policy is the least policy, because they got to go out and enforce it. So they know that firsthand. And we talked about litigation proof strategy being stick with the order from GA 56, Governor Abbott's executive order, which asked create some regulations, but they didn't say anything about licensing fees or any of that stuff. And we did talk about THCA. It has nutritional and nutraceutical benefits, even if you don't decarboxylate it. And you have to consider people's right to have that access, especially if we have endogenous cannabinoid systems and they're finding medically a deficiency, a nutritional deficiency could be what is causing some of these health issues. We just haven't identified that. We think that cannabis is being used as a treatment when really the issue is likely deficiencies. And they have a responsibility not just to regulate for adult use, but to consider these other uses as well and to protect them. I get the argument that medical cannabis will never include combustibles, and that makes sense.
I don't believe
and
that.
So
That's ridiculous.
You have to create a space, though, for that to exist. And we did talk about, I know I'm just trying to tell you how fast we can get through those 2 minutes. I tell them, you also have to consider your interstate security and economies, and they know Texas is the largest cannabis market in the United States and therefore likely the largest in the world.
I don't know. India is the largest.
If Texas is a very large economy, so is California, and I'm not knocking you guys, but I am saying it is the largest. It is producing billions, much more. And until you guys get your illicit market numbers, I don't know, because we can track hemp. Y'all give me your illicit market numbers and put them with your cannabis numbers and put them with your hemp numbers, and we'll have what your state is producing too. I'm not here to argue about Texas versus California. We're looking at this on a bigger level. Is they need to understand their responsibility as a border state. We've got the Gulf. We have these issues with transnational security that are becoming real issues. Like we're talking about Venezuela and entering this conflict through drug interdiction.
This is not in a conflict with Venezuela.
Entering a conflict to extradite a sitting president through the claim that they are using the weapons that they're using are drug trafficking. I'm not doing anything crazy. I'm giving you the same material that Trump has actually said himself. I'm not arguing or being crazy leftist right now. I'm telling you what they have said and used as their reason for going in. And if we're going to make those kinds of claims, Texas needs to be very acutely aware of what a ban will do when it comes to destabilizing this market and empowering and emboldening and giving a new income source to illicit market operators who mean to do the United States harm. And I understand right now that's not mostly the trap, but it can be if we fuck this up. I'm sorry, YouTube. God darn it. We're going to have to get me.
We're going to have to get you.
I'm going to work on it. I will work on it.
Yeah. So Brian Dabrowski in the chat, he says, after the Texas Supreme Court oral arguments today on the Sky marketing case, DSHS should know better than to push this through. Go Texas, he says.
I will cover those. I'll cover that. Their hearing is today.
Yeah.
So we'll find out. But
it was very
I'll cover it tomorrow or Friday if y'all want me to come back on, or next week.
Oh, I love this.
Well, I'd like to point out that the Republicans have borrowed from the Democrats what they used to piss and moan about. Democrats overtax and overregulate anything. Here we are, this conservative Republican administration taxing the shit. Those license fees are taxes. Okay? They're raising revenue, right? And all this regulation is just extra money that people have to pay to run their business. And I've had these discussions with my liberal friends who piss and moan that it's so damn hard to run a pot business. It's like, yeah, well, you tax and regulate the shit out of everything. Now it's coming back to bite you on the butt.
Yep.
That overtax and overregulation response to something that the people of Texas clearly don't want the government to be doing. Okay? And that's what they're just not listening to. And at what point do the people stand up and go, you know, we're tired of this stuff. We want this. And also realize that this is not the biggest problem the United States is facing right now, but it's important to us. Okay? And it's something that is going to be tied up in the war on drugs. And we get this out of the war on drugs, how we're going to deal with this. Right now, they're pissing and moaning about stuff. At the people are clearly making it aware that we don't want you to be doing this. Why? Okay? And if you don't pay attention to the people, at some point, they vote your ass out.
Yeah.
Maybe they should.
Fair enough. Chris, any thoughts on this? Big Texas?
Big Texas. I don't know how Venezuela got into all this.
Yeah.
Well, because Texas, look, international policy largely is dependent on domestic stability, and when we don't have domestic stability, and
we have tons of domestic stability.
Other people, other state actors,
everybody wants to smoke more weed, is what happens.
That is so true.
Better weed.
We're making claims that other nations are. We have made a claim that drugs are a weapon being used against the United States, and because Texas
mainly fentanyl
has a massive border and the Gulf, and we all know
that's not true. I'm just trying to see how that directly has to deal with Texas trying to continue to regulate hemp. I mean, Texas, y'all need to get your system together I don't disagree that it's one of the biggest cannabis markets in the world, but it's not a unified market. So neither is California because of the illicit market. But California has at least tried to put in a unified framework. It's just that people are rebellious enough to push against it. Texas just has, you have hemp numbers, but how much of that hemp is really grown in Texas? I would say probably 15% or less. I think a lot of that is.
I understand, but that doesn't mean that the commerce isn't happening, though. It doesn't mean that this.
And I'm not one to say that it should or shouldn't,
There's
but
also going to be a number if all 50 states legalize. Not all 50
Hold on,
states
we have 51 right now.
percent of their flour. Not all 50 states that we currently have in this union will produce 100% of their flour. And that is just a fact of the industry. No one is saying that California isn't going to grow a fuckload of. God, wow. I'm sorry, YouTube. It's like because I can't say it, it's just going to keep coming out, Jason. YouTube, we really love you, man. Chill. I will work on it. I don't curse at legislative meetings, but I guess I've developed
this is a legislative meeting.
They won't produce a lot of flour and that they won't be able to send it. I actually would love for us to figure this out through the hemp way, because if you try to do it through, unless you get a full deschedule and that takes everything off, and that's a miracle to get something that's going to just magically that regulation doesn't exist. Through hemp, we can get interstate commerce, so that way California can backfill shelves. So that way we don't have problems in other states where they can have local product that's launched, but we don't have things where you got people waiting 8 hours to get into a dispensary for product that will only last 2 hours of that line. Because we, like what you saw in Minnesota or what you see in other states when they first open, we have to think about this as a whole organism, the United States, because it is a national industry. And how does it tie into Venezuela is because it is that kind of a commodity. When you mess it up and you hand it over to the illicit market, you're essentially giving $8 billion into an illicit black hole that will likely not remain with the illicit market, who are American citizens and just trying to sell. It will eventually convert to more dangerous arms because it has become profitable again. Illicit market operations aren't as profitable as they were before. It's a different kind of illicit operator. But if you create these black markets, you're going to bring back a lot of the bad actors, and you're going to push out a lot of the good mom and pop shops. So I don't even want to imagine what's going to come if they ban this. They're going to come up with some other synthetic bullshit that it doesn't even have to do with THC, and they're going to try to push that. Let's just regulate this stuff and call it a day. We got other issues facing the nation and Texas.
I mean, every state is a laboratory of democracy, and this is Texas's experiment on how they're going to go about it. We'll see if it, in 10 years, if it proves the test of time, or once there is a true framework for interstate commerce. But right now, it's just an experiment, and it's going to go through the same market and regulatory dynamics as other programs have, even if they use different terminologies and definitions. So I can't really speak on it. Of course, everyone should have access. Age gating, all of that, we've all talked about here. It's something that they want it there for some legitimacy, right? It'll keep the Karens happy, keep the NIMBYs happy, and allow people to move forward as a business. But is this sustainable for a true competitive market? I mean, even what California did isn't sustainable for a true competitive market.
Yeah, it's sustainable. It's been in existence for 7 years. We're the beta test, and we're lucky that we learned that our operators were watching what the other operators were. Because I remember when we had Nate on, and he was really, his mind was blown that operators would self-regulate. He was like, is there really a utopia where this is happening? And I will say that there are some that don't, but there are some that do, and they do because we have watched. I would be one of those operators. We have watched every market open and watched your politicians attack you and attack you and attack you. And we have extrapolated the information that we needed to learn the lessons by watching. A smart man learns from his mistakes. A wise man learns from the mistakes of others. And I don't know what proverb that is, but it's stuck with me for a long time. And thank God, if you can learn from everyone else, do it, and then bring that into your market before the legislators even come to the table. And that's what we did back in 2018. This is a 7-year-long experiment. I'm not going to say Texas is fully developed. It's still underdeveloped, and we still have some room to grow for sure. But by far, working here has been it's been far easier than when I've ever had to work with anyone in California, Colorado, or New York. And the things, the hurdles that are put in place in those states are arbitrary, and it's so frustrating.
Well, Brian Nabrowski also says we need to be real about THCA now. Vapes have been outlawed and handed to the teacup program, which has failed to bring them back to market. Another big
argue
problem.
this much just because I care about the U.S. and our larger policy, and I want to see all of our state markets thrive and us really crushing this. And that's why I'm so gung-ho about how Texas has done it, because it truly is, since 2018, the only place where I have this kind of data and this kind of growth. And we haven't seen, it is not mass panic. We don't have people shooting each other. I have yet to really hear of many dispensaries being robbed, like what we used to see, what we see with happening at Catalyst all the time. Like, I feel bad. I watch what's happening in Cali, and you like getting robbed. Have so many. It's not just Catalyst. It's like a lot of.
That's a general socioeconomic problem of California. I mean, you have BMW dealerships and Apple stores getting robbed.
Everywhere gets robbed. Everywhere gets robbed. Yeah, exactly. It's not exclusive to cannabis stores.
Specific issue. Anybody selling.
I'm saying I'm not hearing about our dispensaries having that issue as much, and that
just because you're not hearing about it doesn't mean it's not happening, Shaun.
Yeah, that's neither here nor there.
90% of crime is never even reported.
It's not as widespread, guys, and it's not nearly as violent. And the reason for that,
you know why? No. The reason for that, no, I'm going to tell you straight up. The reason for that is because of Texas's gun laws. Because people know that people are going to get shot if they come into their spot, and they're going to go pow pow pow, click click click, bang bang bang, and that's what's going to happen. Is because they have good gun laws in Texas, and we have terrible gun laws in California. That's what it's all about.
I am not arguing with you about guns from the Lone Star State. Yes. And it's because everyone has been allowed to participate. One of the bigger issues that Dish's hearing was that 1,300% increase on fees from $250 to $25,000. It's punitive on purpose. It's because folks are allowed to participate. You don't have to, there's not a scarcity where you have to fight each other for it. And yes, because we are allowed to stand our ground, we will shoot you if you come across our property line. You're not supposed to be there.
Exactly. Shoot 'em up, bang, bang. And on that, we're going to roll into the shoot 'em up, bang, bang himself, who's going to probably get you off if you shoot 'em up, bang, bang, is Mr. Dale Schafer. Dale has been an attorney since the Reagan administration, and he has represented physicians, hospitals, insurance companies, cops, corrections officers, gun owners, and for the last 25 years, he specialized in cannabis law. He served a 5-year federal prison sentence for helping medical cannabis patients and managed to save his law license and his guns. But he is blunt. He doesn't smoke them because they're ratchet, they're nasty, and they turn things yellow, but he is honest, and he's unconcerned with your opinion, public opinion, as anyone else that wants to identify as anything else's opinion. And he will show you how he can defy gravity like a superhero and piss up a rope. That's right, it is your favorite Tio Loco, and you can now find him at his own law office at the law office of none other than Dale Schafer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Favorite Tio Loco and Jason's favorite full of shitakis. That's okay on YouTube to say that, right?
Yeah. That was great, Dale. Oh, that was great voiceover right there.
I will try to watch my F-bombs.
Yes.
Why I try not to go to court much anymore, because after prison, it just pops out so quick.
Hey, I'm with it.
Sorry, Your Honor, I didn't mean to call you that.
Yeah.
Your mother either.
Yeah.
Okay, my story this morning comes out of Marijuana Moment from yesterday, and it's Kyle Yeager. The headline is: a federal health official says teens are finding it harder to access marijuana even as legalization spreads, contrary to opponents' fears. Now, this is an ongoing trend that I think we've talked about some of the numbers. I think the highest number of young people using weed was back in 78, something like that, at 37%. These are high schoolers, and it's way, way, way down now. Okay? And this is illustrative of my experience of how you deal with teenagers. I've got 5 children. I got a dozen grandchildren, and, just FYI, another one in the oven. So I'll be 13 times Papa here pretty soon. And I've raised them on both sides. I've been a girl dad for 50 years, and they're just different than boys. But our technique of trying to get children to not do something by trying to scare them is just incredibly stupid, because teenagers are stupid. If you try to scare them, a whole bunch of them are going to, I'm going to go do it anyway just because somebody said I shouldn't do it. Okay? And that's a theme that I ran through my children and grandchildren now, is please be honest with them. Okay? Why do kids smoke weed? Because it makes them feel good. Like, why do they spank their monkey? Because it makes them feel good. Let's just be honest, right? And that's the problem we have. But at a bigger level, higher level, 30,000-foot level, what this points out is that if we stop treating marijuana like it's the devil's lettuce and all that stuff and deal with it honestly, young people go, okay, well, some people use it, some people won't. Most of them are deciding, no, I don't want to do that. It's cool. I'm good. Maybe I'll try it once and I'm fine. I don't need to do this. It isn't like it's the forbidden fruit problem that we've been dealing with for a long time. But that is just the tip of the iceberg of the bigger discussion we're going to have to get into now, because Hemp's got a deadline on it. Rescheduling's coming, whether it's going to be, back and forth. I don't know about that. But our basic approach dealing with substances that make people feel good is to tell people you just can't do it. If you do, I'm going to be like your dad and I'm going to beat your ass. That's been our philosophy now for well over a century. It doesn't work. Now, is it possible we can have a discussion about 3 legs of our criminal justice system: punishment, deterrence, and rehabilitation? Okay? Because it's the rehabilitation and trying to address the demand we have for drugs in this country that we seem to have stuck our head up our butt about and just don't want to deal with. The reality is that there's a lot of people who figured out a long time ago that taking a drink, taking a hit off your pipe, snort a little coke, snort a little heroin, whatever, it makes you feel better. Okay? And if we don't talk about that honestly with people, especially young people growing up, and we deal with that when they get caught up in the criminal justice system. And just to be blunt, the war on drugs is a miserable failure. It's a miserable failure because you don't recognize people want to do this. You don't want to deal with them as human beings, help them overcome addiction if they have it, or deal with their use if they don't. We do not want to have those discussions. And they are critical to have, because this information about young people is just illustrative how you can deal with young people honestly and move beyond what we were so concerned we didn't want them to do. Because punishing people, get them to stop doing something that makes them feel good, it's just futile. It's worthless. So this is something that I want to have a discussion about, have it today anytime it comes up, because I sat in prison thinking about this. I got plenty of the punishment, okay? They whipped my ass 5 years in prison. Deterrence, they went after Molly's medical license. They deterred physicians, okay? We get that. But the rehabilitation part of this was a joke, okay? And to back up before you get sent to prison, if we deal with somebody who's really struggling with the abuse of a substance, and it's a habit-forming substance, punishing them to get them to stop does not work. And what I'm reminded of is back in 1912, they passed a law called the Harrison Anti-Narcotics Act. And what it effectively did was stop doctors from prescribing medication to maintain an addict. They used some special words, can prescribe in the usual course of medical practice. Well, a guy named Dr. Webb, who was a pill pusher, figured out he and some pharmacists could just write scripts for addicts and make a lot of money. Well, he got his butt kicked. He should have. Okay. What the Supreme Court told physicians is, we will not allow you to maintain an addict anymore. So that went away from medicine. Now, as we get closer to dealing with reality, we are talking about medically assisted treatment, okay? Which means you give somebody a drug to help them deal with their cravings or the drug they are abusing. Okay? That's what maintenance is. Oh, these discussions could not take place because, oh my God, doctors can't talk about maintaining an addict. Well, one of the founders of Johns Hopkins University and the godfather of surgery was a morphine addict. And all of his friends maintained his addiction at a maintenance level so he could still function. And he developed techniques for surgery that are still used today. Okay? So we can't just throw people out because they have some issue with abusing a substance. We need to work with them because substance abuse is a defined mental illness in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. Okay? It is a mental illness. Throwing someone in prison for a mental illness is stupid. It doesn't work. It's immoral. And I sat in prison with a lot of guys that were there for drugs, and it's like, dude, this ain't helping. Like, you got some sex addict and you stick him in prison and he can't have sex for 5 years. He's not going to stop doing that when he gets out. The same thing with a drug addict. You tell him you can't use this because I got a gun to your head, and as soon as the gun ain't there, guess what? They run right back and use it. So our approaches just defy logic, they defy psychology, and they just seem to be meant to hurt people who dare to do something that the policymakers tell you, we're your dad and you can't do it. Okay? And I really object to that because it's failed. And please, can we have a discussion about a new technique to deal with demand here in our country? As much as we're going after the drug producers and distributors outside the country, problem is demand. There's demand, it will be here. If you make it harder, it will be made more concentrated, okay? And that's the dynamic we've watched. That's why fentanyl is there. Because you can stick enough fentanyl up your butt to walk across the border to make a lot of money, okay? And if you think you're going to stop that, you are smoking crack. Dynamics are not that hard to understand, and we learn. And oh, by the way, from the last story, when California went legal, there were 1,400 dispensaries just in LA. So for people who think, oh, we've got 150 in Texas, stop it. Stop it. Okay. Anyway, throw it back at you guys. What do you have to say about this?
Yeah, Dale, I wouldn't classify all of those 1,400 as actual dispensaries. I would classify them as outlets that were selling products or whatnot, but I wouldn't classify them all as dispensaries. Just saying.
We have 9,000, and Dishes is aware of it. There are 9,000 operators. That is a solid number that the state is aware of. So we have 9,000 stores, and that doesn't include our convenience stores, which if this $20,000 fee doesn't go in, they'll all get a license. That will be thousands more.
I don't understand how these teens are finding it harder to access with as open as the trap market is, Dale. I think these teens are actually getting smarter and they're just learning to lie.
Well, that's the problem. That's the problem with the surveys. Yeah. So I remind people of lies, damn lies, and statistics. How many people did they survey and what were the questions they asked? Because people can twist this into whatever they want. I know when I was a teenager, come on, man, I could find weed. If I wasn't selling it, my buddy was. And when my kids were teenagers, they pinched my damn bag. Thought I was so stupid I didn't know. But, I understand. You can get weed if you want it. So I think you're right. They just know how to go, yeah, my mom doesn't want me to tell you what I really do, so I'll lie to you. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to, what I'm saying?
I think it could be a combination of things. It could be that, and it could be in these spaces where some of these more open markets, especially in red states where prohibition was rampant, but these hemp markets exist. And by the way, it's all cannabis, guys. Hemp, marijuana, those are legal definitions. The plant is still cannabis. It's cannabis. It's the same thing. We keep having to explain this, and it's been years now. I do think when you see more retail operators, it becomes less profitable on the illicit side.
No.
And when you can get access, Jason, when you can get access and people don't have to just go to a plug, they can go to a trusted, reputable source where there are COAs and they know what they're putting into their bodies. They're gonna shift markets, and we've seen that happen where some of these spaces open. I'm not saying it completely eliminates the trap or illicit market, or the traditional market, there's still going to be people who want that, especially until we have cottage like home grow or cottage craft businesses where you can get good craft weed from people who actually care about it. Until you can get that, you will still see the trend that the illicit market does shrink when you have an open licensed market. It's just because people don't want to be harassed by the police. Most people don't want to be illegal. They want to live their lives, man.
Most
Even
people don't
criminals,
want to be
like,
overtaxed and overregulated, I would say, probably more than anything, which is why that's not going to change.
Well, I'm just letting you know from what I've seen in some of these hemp markets is that when you have access and you have retailers and they're age gating, kids are going to have a harder time getting it because there's not going to be as many distributors on the trap side. And most of those people don't want to be caught selling to kids.
You can't compare the hemp market with the regulated market in this comparison, Shaun.
I absolutely can because it is one market. You guys seem to think that cannabis is separate markets.
It is.
How moronic to think that how we define this plant is being sold.
It's not the definition that changes it, Shaun. It's the regulatory structure. It's the regulatory structure.
Regulatory structure. That's why I said hemp is a regulatory definition. Marijuana is a regulatory definition. The commodity, the item, cannabis is being sold across states under different definitions. And all of these markets all go together. The hemp market, the marijuana market, and the trap market are the cannabis market, whether you want to acknowledge the other arms of it or not. And when you understand this multifaceted, complex system, then you can actually lead it. But until we start to come to terms about the reality of this industry and how much bigger it is than all of us, we're going to keep running ourselves into brick walls. I cannot continue to explain this any further. It's like maddening at this stage. They're the same plant. I don't care what you call it. It's the same damn plant. We've broken out molecule structures and everything. I don't know how many scientists we have to say, this is the same plant. It's THCA, not decarboxylated, whether it's cured longer or not. Affects the taste, but it's still the same plant. I'm done.
All right, she's off her soapbox. Go ahead, Dale or Chris.
Because this is insanity. The industry.
Hold on, you just stepped off your soapbox, Shaun. Hold on, you just stepped off the soapbox. Let other people talk now.
I think the term illicit market has drifted in the last couple of years, especially looking at it 20 years ago. I was a black market grower and you just set up a bunch of lights and you grew weed and you didn't have a scrap of paperwork. And then came the medical market. I was a caregiver in Oakland back in the day, and you had a bunch of paperwork for all your patients, but you weren't being taxed. You weren't being tracked or measured in any way, right? You were still duffel bagging it. So it was kind of a gray market. Now I agree with Shaun to a certain degree. There's certainly blurred lines. You have licensed, wholesalers that have product leaking out of the back door. You have diversion and inversion. And so from an overall point of view of the plant or of wholesale, there is kind of this commingled markets. But from the point of view of just strictly retail, I'm a person in Texas, I'm a person in California, I'm a person in Illinois or New York, and I just want to buy an eighth, right? There's distinct separate markets. If I'm going to buy an eighth from a rec shop, I'm paying high taxes. I have a limited option of licensees that I can purchase from. If I'm calling up my homie or doing some trap shit on Telegram or something, then I have a completely different market that I'm accessing. And the same goes for hemp or medical. If I have to go to a doctor to get a card to access a certain shop, I would constitute that as different markets. Yes, there's a bunch of wholesale commingling that makes it incredibly hard to track. But for the sake of just trying to have a clear conversation, we have to just look at the average consumer and their retail access and what markets are available to them. I think that's the distinction we want to make. Sure, it's all the same plant. It all ends up in someone's hands, someone's lungs. But we have to consider that these definitions are in place, even if these lines are being crossed all the time. The lines still are there and exist. That's like saying we don't really have 50 states. We just have one country, and you can just walk wherever. Who cares, right? But there's lines there. They might be imaginary lines that we drew on a paper, but someone drew them on a paper.
Hold on a second. Did you ever see? Hold on, Shaun. Did you ever see Blow? Did you ever see Blow, Chris?
Of course, I love that movie.
Okay, then you should know that because the judge clearly stated that these are not imaginary lines.
Jason, no one is saying that different consumer audiences don't exist. And I think this is one thing where the industry starts to develop. We can also develop better industrial terminology, because we're all saying, sometimes we're saying the same thing, we're using different words. Sometimes we're saying different things and we're using the same word. And we really need to.
I don't know. I always stay saying the same thing, using the same words.
Gentlemen, no one is denying that there are different consumer demographics, especially not me. Okay, but this is a singular commodity that we are trying to figure out federal and state regulation for. And would you guys like to get to interstate commerce? Because the shortest cut to that is through this. And it's not that I love hemp.
Is what?
It's that I love the right to choose, and as much or deregulation as possible. And we've already fucked it up with marijuana. We've already messed it up with marijuana. But we have an avenue to reconsider and reframe how we look at this through hemp. And we cannot keep regurgitating the same arguments from decades ago and expecting to get a different result in today's political climate. We need to build a bridge for this communication and stop to, yes, there are different consumer audiences and they have different methodologies of getting their product, and they have different interests and investments in how they get their product. I am keenly aware of that. However, when it comes to legislation and the overall industry, this is one market, cannabis, and it is different channels and segments in one larger industry. In the illicit market, foreign, cartel, all of it, you have to consider all of it. Maybe I'm just a stickler for that because of DOD. And when we go into other countries, we like to know, or we used to like to know, how are we going to manage this?
Oh, we know how we're going to manage it. We have to be able
to predict decades in the future. We can't just make these decisions. And the best way to plan for the future is to do as little regulation as possible. I want to give Dale the floor, because Dale, you tell me, like, what do you think is the best legal avenue for this industry to actually get to the deschedule reality that they want to see? I think it's hemp. It's not because I'm some hemp fanatic. It's because the legal pathway makes the most sense to me, and the political language makes the most sense for Democrats and Republicans. But I'm going to shut up. I stopped myself.
Here's the breakdown of the de jure, what the law says, and the de facto about what's actually going on. And that's the problem we have here, that under federal law, this is a crime. Touch it, smell it, whatever, you're going to prison. They don't do that. Mm-hmm. That's one of the complicating factors. And my crystal ball doesn't work. And even if it did, I'd be a Cassandra. People wouldn't believe a goddamn thing I had to say, okay? Because I don't know. I can tell you the reality that this is a plant, but there are 3 distinct channels by which people get their hands on it. 2 are sort of legal, because the feds is still illegal. Mm-hmm. And one of them is outright the trap. Okay, that's the reality. And Shaun, when Jason was first getting into this stuff, and when I was first getting into it also, that we had a guy named Dan Lundgren out here. Yeah. He was an attorney general. He was a Republican. And this son of a bitch, he arrested Dennis Perone just before an election. Yep. Okay, that's what kind of an ass this guy was. So we've been dealing with people inside of these regulatory agencies who just do not want this to happen. And then outside of them are knuckleheads like Sam, okay, and Kevin Sabet, and people of his ilk who just do not want this to happen. Oh, the waters are very deep. I think that hemp should have given regulators the idea that, geez, people want this. And the more regulations, the harder it is. The less regulations, the easier it is. Maybe the Wharton School of Business should teach this, okay? Get the hell out of the market's way and let them run this with as little regulation for actual public health and safety as you can. That's the goal. Now, how do we get there? We're going to be fighting this like dogs around in the alley for a while.
That we are. And on that, I think it's the perfect time for us to roll into our next commercial. And we are going to be right back. And just as a heads up, these next 2 commercials are currently airing on Fox News, you guys. Very, very, very exciting stuff. Get ready. Get triggered, Shaun.
Rescheduling cannabis, which was classified as more dangerous than fentanyl. Trump's action will destroy the cartel's illicit black market. expand medical research, and ensure seniors and veterans safely receive the care they need. Thank President Trump for delivering on another America First promise.
I want to be honest, like, and Carol's got
Stop whatever you're doing. Make sure you smash that like button. I know we'll appreciate it. You'll appreciate it, and YouTube will appreciate it. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. And all of the articles that we cover on today's show, you can read directly on our website at www.high9news.com. And please make sure that you follow us on X and Rumble, because Shaun can't stop dropping F-bombs.
Under President Trump, America is back. Trump's delivered the largest tax cut in history, putting more money in our pockets and restored America's economic dominance. Promises made, promises kept. Now it's time to fulfill another promise from President Trump and reschedule cannabis, which supports over 400,000 jobs and creates billions of dollars in economic growth. Reschedule cannabis and stack another win, Mr. President. America First Agriculture Action Inc. is responsible for the contents of this advertising.
drop a few F-bombs sometimes to get someone's attention.
Such a great, those two commercials were so fantastic, you guys. Man. And on that, we are going to roll into someone else that is also fantastic. We're going to roll into Miss Shaun Salvaje. She's a mom. She's a mitigator, even though she likes to drop F-bombs. And she's also a mom, even though she likes to drop F-bombs. That's right, it is none other than Miss Shaun Salvaje.
You know, my sons actually don't curse, which is great. But they do.
So
say,
I guess they learned that from their father then, huh?
No, he was a former Marine. We both curse a whole lot, and I think that's part of it. That's probably also the answer to why the kids aren't smoking so much. All the parents are. It's not cool, man. Speaking of, being triggering, whatever.
Yeah, love some triggers. Pow, pow, pow.
My story today comes from Marijuana Moment. It is about a polarizing character. I don't think he realizes the power of his platform sometimes, but it's very influential. Joe Rogan surprised, and I really love this conversation. I do highly recommend it. Everyone listen to this episode. It will actually explain how some of these things are tied. Although Senator Rand Paul was on an episode of Joe Rogan recently. It was released yesterday. And he talks about international relations too. And I have to give you guys some context. I studied foreign policy and diplomacy, international relations. It does influence how I look at cannabis. But this story from Marijuana Moment, Joe Rogan surprised after GOP senator says marijuana and alcohol industries jointly back to ban hemp THC products. So y'all know Joe films his show out here in Austin, Texas, where I've told y'all, but some of you refuse to believe, we have a pretty open adult use cannabis market through our hemp regulations. Joe Rogan seems stunned to hear Senator Rand Paul, Republican from Kentucky, who has fought vehemently to protect hemp on the federal level, tell him on a new episode of his podcast that certain marijuana businesses joined hands with the alcohol industry to lobby in favor of a federal ban on most hemp THC products. I'm sure for most of you, this isn't news. We're all in the industry. During a wide-ranging interview on the Joe Rogan Experience that aired on Tuesday, that was yesterday. Sorry, days are all mixed up. The senator discussed his months-long effort to fight against the recriminalization of hemp under a spending bill signed into law by President Donald Trump in November. Rand Paul again faulted his home state colleague, Senator Mitch McConnell, a Republican from Kentucky, for spearheading the ban. They went toe-to-toe for most of the year last year over this in Kentucky and then on the federal side, which hemp industry stakeholders say it would effectively eradicate the industry that's evolved since the crop was federally legalized under the 2018 Farm Bill that Trump signed during his first term. So Joe was surprised. I'm gonna summarize this because Marijuana Moment is trying to give you like a full news story. I listened to the episode. I'm 3/4 of the way through of it. They had a really interesting conversation, and I thought it was remarkable to see Senator Rand Paul bring it to a platform like Joe Rogan, especially because Joe's well known for smoking while he's on air. He lives here in Austin. If he's buying any product, it could be from this regulated market, although he's friends with Woody and everybody. We know everybody has, if you know people, you always have access to great product. So he lives here and has an awareness of our market, but didn't have the awareness of what was going on with the hemp ban. And I do think it's really important that we have senators like Rand Paul bringing these kitchen table issues, because in Texas, it is a kitchen table issue. For us, it is an $8 billion market. Senator Rand Paul knew that hemp overall in the United States is a $28 billion market, spoke to it, spoke on the hemp ban, and acknowledged that it was large marijuana MSOs who were contributing to the language, wanting to ban it, and it has a lot to do with influence. And this was a conversation that was throughout the episode, was talking about how private interests often influence political outcomes, including things like hemp bans, or intervening in foreign policy in other nations, and being in the business of nation building. They started off right off the bat talking about COVID, and vaccinations. So I do think these conversations between podcasters, because Joe's not a news guy, he self-acknowledges he's a dude with a mic asking questions. I do think that people can still relate to that, and that it is really important to be having these higher level conversations on a platform like Rogan, where we can really parse out different concepts and ideas to educate the mass public, because not everybody is going to be able to take their time. Like today, my afternoon will be spent reading the legal briefing from the Sky Marketing case. Not everybody's folks are working to live. Not everyone can read the legal brief. So we need to have, and it actually speaks to the show High at 9, because we're having these conversations. It's because of this show and how we started it way back in 2020 that we were able to learn from our partners in California and in other states, our counterparts in other states. What is the best way to do this? Where have y'all stumbled, and has it hurt you hard? And sometimes you don't even have to ask the questions, because I think in the industry, we all know when you get punched in the face, you're willing to share the wisdom with other people so that it doesn't happen to them, unless you're a shady character. Most folks are willing to tell their stories and be like, yo, I wouldn't do that because I learned this the hard way. Here's what I figured out. And I can appreciate that exchange of information. I do think this is really important. One thing they touched on, and one reason why I'm in a good mood, but it could also be the flower I was smoking, is they touched on the criminalization of all of this. I do think it is really important to address, because the criminalization, and this is why I'm so passionate about the hemp laws and regulations, and how is the law actually defined, and what can the state actually do, because there are moments when people get caught up. So tomorrow I will share with the audience, I'm a little emotional, but 3 years ago, I had a false report filed against me. The plant was used to try to blackmail me, and it resulted in a false arrest and felony charge that I had 3 years. I had to wait and work through paperwork to get expunged. So all the work that you could put into your industry, or like put your name on a license, or be able to provide for your kids, all of that is compromised when we have these laws that, and forgive my very privileged tears, because my case was rejected and could never go forward, but it still is disruptive and destabilizing, and I didn't have to do time, thank God, right? But to have it take that long to be able to clear your name, to be able to provide for your family, when all you're doing is trying to help other people gain access to a plant, like what Dale and his wife went through. No one should have to go through that experience. So to have Senator Paul actually speaking to those issues, to the criminalization of good people, really trying to be good shepherds, and to the fact that a lot of it is corporate interests that are really putting us all on the chopping block, it meant something to me. I thought it was a great episode. Marijuana Moment covered the story, and they bring up the alcohol industry and the marijuana industry and how they lobby. But I think the most important focus isn't the enemy out there. It's what we have to build right here. So this is an episode of JRE that I would definitely recommend. I know my friends who are more on the left really hate his guts, but I also think that COVID conversation is definitely worth having. And I'm looking forward to more of these. May more good, sensible senators like Rand Paul get the floor a little bit more often to help break down issues for the American public so we can really understand what we're signing. Because when we pass laws, it's not the people who pass the laws who go to jail, it's you and me. I think Dale can speak to that. So I'm going to toss it back to the audience. I told the team I would try not to get too emo.
The correspondents, not
my
the
little
audience.
pipe one more time. And I'm very excited because tomorrow my name should be cleared. There are no objections to my case. So let's do this, y'all.
Yeah, and no one troll her by sending an objection on her case.
It's too late. I already got him from the attorneys. No one can.
All right.
So
all right.
I hear you.
All right, fair
Well,
enough.
I appreciate what Rand is saying, and I spoke with Rand personally about some of these issues. And it's been a few years since I attended his fundraiser, Jason, but you know, I spoke to him about some of this stuff, and I have a libertarian streak in me because I believe in what our founding fathers believed in, that we have a life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness right in this country. Okay, and that the government should not take that away unless there's pretty strong evidence that the people want it. And that's what we fought our revolution about. You know, we don't want people telling us what to do. And one of the things that Rand just rants about as a libertarian is that we are overregulated and overtaxed every place you look.
Exactly.
Okay? And this industry is like the epitome of overtax and overregulation because a bunch of thin-skinned, you know, ideologues are afraid someone might be able to have access to weed, and we just can't have that. So we're going to tax and regulate the shit out of this. And you're right, Shaun. A lot of people got hurt and still get hurt because the system doesn't have anything other than kicking your ass and throwing you in jail. It was one of the reasons why I supported Prop 64 in California, is it gutted the laws could put you in jail.
Yep.
It made pot a misdemeanor soaking wet. That means the cops will not pay attention to it anymore unless you force them to.
Yep.
Which is a good thing. But the problem is that the government did not pay attention to Adam Smith when he said, don't let the mercantilist run your government. These big corporations lobby the shit out of our government, and they have power we can't even imagine. And I think Rand is blowing the trumpet. You have no idea what these people are doing behind the scenes, okay? Because we don't get to see that. You get the social media, the commercial sides of this. People smoke pot and don't drink as much alcohol. So guess what? The alcohol industry's butt is puckered up right now because they're losing revenue. And guess what they do? They lobby Congress.
Yep.
We may not know this. People inside the DEA, they make money for busting people for drugs. And weed is easy. You can smell it. It's easy to find. They don't want to give this stuff up. It has nothing to do with whether you or I have a right to smoke pot in our front room watching TV, you know, football, whatever. I can get drunker than Hogan's goat, but I can't smoke. Shut up. Stop it. It makes no sense. Stop telling me what to do when I'm not hurting anybody. And I appreciate Rand screaming that from the rafters, because until people understand, both sides tax and regulate what they don't want you to do.
Yep.
Both sides do.
Well,
so I don't want to hear
Democrats do
anymore.
it more.
Those of us that are trying to be in the middle somewhere going, hey, can we be reasonable about this? We keep screaming, and both extremes want to tax and regulate. We just talked about what they're doing in Texas. We're going to make it illegal. Yeah, good luck. You can't stop this. Every cop in the country can't stop this. And then we stop paying attention to real crime. This is not real crime. Can we get beyond that? This is about personal freedom. Can we get the government out of our way? Because this plant basically grows itself, okay? All you got to do is you can chew on the damn bud, get a old beer can, poke a couple holes, and you can smoke some of it. It ain't rocket science. People know that. Want to do it. Can we find a way to allow them to do that without having to run the gauntlet of ending up like I did, doing 5 years in federal prison for basically horse shit?
Well, I don't understand why.
That's the crazy part is that my case was rejected very shortly after, but it took 3 years because of the nature of it being a felony arrest. based on a false report. It took 3 years for me. So all of this work, I've on the back of it had this heavy weight on my shoulders. And then you get people who reach out and they want to connect and you want to do business. But I cautioned people who wanted medical applications, and I cautioned them, I need you to understand this, and this is why I would recommend, I will help you build your package, but I wouldn't put my name on your package, because who knows where this is going to go. And isn't that insane? Like, isn't that insane to the people who are working the hardest?
No, it's not insane at all, Shaun. It's how this whole system has always been designed. This has always been the structure of the framework of how this whole thing has worked.
Well, I hope it explains why I'm a little bit insane or a little intense sometimes, is because I truly, truly believe.
I'll go with the insanity part.
I'm a veteran.
I'll go with the insanity part.
Serve and protect the people, defend the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. It means even ourselves when we're fucking up and making mistakes. Oh, darn it. I'm so sorry, you guys.
You are in a legislative body, and we are going to have the marshals escort you outside of the room, Shaun.
I am going to have to advertise myself as the mediator who swears. I think it'll actually bring more people in the door, but
no,
we'll see.
But Shaun, even worse than that. Okay, because I was a teenager in the 1960s, and basically for me, high school was the Nixon administration. And when the Controlled Substances Act got passed, and this came out of John Ehrlichman's mouth, who was Nixon's right-hand guy, we made heroin illegal so we could criminalize the blacks. We made weed illegal so we could criminalize those damn anti-war protesting hippies. Okay, and it was put there, and it's still there. Okay, and so that sort of mentality, once it gets implemented, how do you shake loose of that? And that's what we're still talking about now, because the policy was insane. It wasn't put there for logical, scientific reasons. And if they were going to investigate till we could change it, they lied to our face. Oh, I'm shocked. The government lied to us. Yeah, they lie to your face. This is a money-making commodity, not because people want to smoke it, because the institutions that try to prohibit it and limit it and regulate it are making a hell of a lot of money, and they don't want to give up what they're getting.
And because stoners are the low-hanging fruit and are generally morally good people and generally will show up to court, not be violent, and pay their fines.
Yep,
they're easy to target. You know, you don't want to go after some MS-13 guy who's going to fight back or vanish on you. You want to go after the hardworking middle-class pothead who's like, oh shit, I guess I got to go to court for this case now
and pay this fine and this bond. Yeah. Oh God, I know it's a racket. It really is a racket, and it's disgusting because I've been on both sides of it. I represented the cops, and I have a lot of sympathy for cops because they have a hard job.
They do.
Once they throw you in the system, they don't give two shits about you. And the system just eats you up and spits you out, and wonders why we have such a high recidivism rate. It goes back to my early argument. Do we care about human beings? People in this country are screaming, we're using these drugs of despair. Can you pay attention that we're not happy? You know, we can't buy a house. We can't afford our kids. We're pedaling as fast as we can. Shit ain't working. And if I smoke a joint and feel better, I got to worry someone's going to throw me in jail. Okay. But I can pound back a whole bottle of Jack Daniels and somehow that's cool. No, it's not. It's not logical. My children don't buy it. My grandchildren don't buy it anymore. Stories are not holding water, but the people who are making money are going to hang on to like Gollum in that ring. Oh, it's mine. Yeah, right. Pretty.
Exactly.
Have it. No.
But the alcohol industry has a very clearly defined loop of taxation and penalization, right? If you go out, you get too drunk, you drive home, you're going to catch a DUI. There's DUI lawyers that specialize in that. There's judges, there's courts, there's subsidies for police departments for DUI convictions. So there's a whole closed loop. There's alcohol licenses for bars, liquor stores, hangouts. For cannabis, it's a lot harder, and there's all these little loopholes. I say loophole, and I'm not talking about hemp. I mean the fact that pretty much anybody could grow cannabis, right? It's an easy plant to hide. It's an easy plant to grow. It's a fast-growing annual. I don't need a big still. I don't need a big smelly apparatus. So how do you keep that in a box? How do you continually tax that? The only way they've known how to do that historically is through, brutal, draconian criminalization. Is like, oh, well, you smell like pot, you smoke pot, hit you over the head, you're going to jail, we're taking your kids away. So now that we're trying to still emerge from that, they're looking for a new model of closing that loop. That's why we still don't really have real cannabis lounges. I just went one in Las Vegas a week and a half ago, and I was like, this is super disappointing. Like it's just a bunch of awkward stoners sitting in a room listening to Wu-Tang, not talking to each other. That's not the bar vibe we all want.
Yeah.
So
Chris, we're gonna come out to Austin before January 25th if things don't go well, but I think we'll be all right. You got to come out.
I don't think I'm going to make it out there by January 25th, but I believe you, and I think that socially we've reached a level of acceptance. But I think that the systems that are in place that try to control not just cannabis or commodities, but our society from the point of view of taxation, still have not learned how to incorporate that, how to just allow people to smoke pot. And sure, we'll pay some minimal tax on it, but we don't want to be constantly hit at every corner for this thing. I mean, going back to the article here, it's interesting that Rand Paul was saying that he thought that Mitch McConnell said it was an unintended consequence of hemp.
Yeah, he knew exactly what he was doing.
I don't think so.
Yeah, that's total baloney.
It's the farmers. They were trying to give the farmers an avenue because farming was so hurting at that time. And
because
the farmers
screwed over farmers so much in this country that we tried to give them a glimmer of hope with hemp.
Yeah,
and I did a lot of consulting in the hemp industry pre-COVID back in 2017, 2018. I was working with tobacco farmers in North Texas in the Panhandle. I was consulting with them, and they were really good, hardworking people, and they thought CBD hemp was going to pull them out of the gutter, and it unfortunately didn't. Put some of them even more debt. And unfortunately, the farmers always get shafted in any industry, whether you're growing corn or tomatoes or cannabis or hemp, whatever you want to call it. We see that. I've been growing cannabis over 20 years now, and it's just the profits get skinnier and skinnier, and it's unfortunate because that's where my passion is. That's what I want to be doing. And it's not that I want to get rich off of it, but I would like to make a decent livelihood, not end up in the red completely at the end of every year, to do what I love and produce something that's good and that people enjoy. But there's a lot at stake here. There's a lot of special interests that want to grab this and hold it. Kentucky's one of those states that only gave away 16 licenses, and all the big MSOs were fighting each other for it, and hemp stood in the way of that. And I know Mitch McConnell is behind at least a couple of those MSO licenses that were awarded in Kentucky. So he's trying to get rid of his competition. So this is abuse of power for a politician. And I'm glad that we're shedding some light on it. But even Rogan's being naive and not really understanding it shows that even the layperson doesn't really understand it. And we're over here talking about access and all these things, but.
But he gave some history, and props to Rogan. He did talk about the Marijuana Tax Act, how it was used to criminalize Black and brown people. That includes Mexicanos, especially. Important to me, I'm a Tejana here in Texas, means I'm Native American and Mexican at the same time, guys. The mutual, two realities can't exist.
We can't have all these jazz musicians stealing our women, right?
Him knowing that history, though, he still wasn't fully aware of just how much influence was being exerted in DC. And Rogan has politicians on his podcast. You would think he would. We need to make sure, as people who are in this industry, we're doing a better job at investing into public education and really representing ourselves.
And that's why we need to get rid of the Department of Education, totally blasted out of the government. Consumer
that's what we need to do. Not public education in that way. And that is on us. We need to know what our products are, what they do, how they affect people. And we should be investing more in consumer studies and data, and then pushing out information that is scientifically accurate, not just to drive bottom lines and profits. And we do have to consider the wider market out there. You can stay in the niche cannabis industry if you want to stay in the very niche culture as we all call it. But there is a demographic of people who there's a whole nation out there of folks who are different and they want different things, and you can have specialized markets.
All right, well, on that, we got to keep this train rolling. We're going to roll into our final commercial, and we are going to be right back.
Oh man, your knees still bothering you, man?
Yeah, my left one, you know? But I'll tell you what, I've been using this new CBD cream, and it works like a miracle.
CBDs? I done heard about them CBDs. I was out there on them Twitters the other day, and I heard they get you high as a kite.
Well, not this stuff. This stuff is tested. Every batch, all the way through, pharmaceutical grade, and in a GMP certified facility. So you know you're not going to have to worry about flying high.
GMP certified? I might have to try some of this out. Where I'm even find this?
You go directly to aimhighhemp.com and they will ship it to your door right away. Tested. It's not a name, it's a promise.
Being desensitized to it doesn't make it right.
I'm just saying, I don't. And when we're back. And we are going to roll right into Mr. Christopher Vaos. Christopher Vaos is a seasoned cannabis industry professional with over 15 years of experience in commercial cultivation, and he has led large-scale indoor greenhouse and outdoor operations across various U.S. markets, specializing in cultivation optimization, team leadership, and cost-efficient scaling. With a background in engineering and a data-driven, science-based approach, Christopher consistently delivers strong test results in plant health, productivity, and operational efficiency. That's right, it is none other than Mr. Christopher Vaos.
I like cultivation. I need to make that a word somehow.
Yeah.
All right. Coming from Florida, where my feet stand at the moment.
Yeah.
Florida's Secretary of State wants a judge to dismiss a lawsuit after the state rejected about 71,000 signatures for proposed recreational marijuana amendment. Attorneys for Florida Secretary of State Cord Bird said the judge is justified in invalidating roughly 42,000 signatures from inactive voters and nearly 29,000 gathered by out-of-state petition collectors, according to CBS 12 partners at the South Florida Sun Sentinel. The lawsuit, filed December 29th by Smart and Safe Florida, comes as the group races to meet a February 1st deadline to submit at least 882,062 valid signatures to qualify for the November ballot. State election records on Tuesday showed 675,307 verified signatures, though Smart and Safe Florida told the Sun Sentinel that more than 1 million voters signed petitions supporting the proposal. Bird's attorney said removing signatures from inactive voters is legitimate and aligns with Florida's effort to prevent petition fraud. In a statement obtained by the Sun Sentinel, they argued permitting petition forms submitted by inactive voters to be verified as valid would thwart the legislature's efforts to curb fraud in the initiative petition process. Because a voter is placed in inactive status only after they have failed to respond to an address confirmation final notice from a supervisor of elections, or their notice was returned as undeliverable, there is indicia that the voter no longer resides at the registered address or does not wish to engage in the electoral process. Thus, if a petition validation notice is sent to the registered address for the inactive voter, it is unlikely to be received or heeded, and potentially fraudulent petitions may not be invalidated. Smart and Safe Florida counters that the signatures are from registered voters and should be counted regardless of activity status. The group's lawsuit notes the absurd result of the Secretary's directive is that inactive voters can vote for the proposed amendment but cannot have their petitions counted to place the proposed amendment on the ballot to vote for it. The legal battle also centers on out-of-state petition gatherers. Florida law bars non-residents from collecting signatures, a rule Smart and Safe Florida challenged in federal court. In July, U.S. District Judge Mark Walker issued a preliminary injunction blocking enforcement. During that injunction, the group used out-of-state petitioners, but in September, a panel of the 11th U.S. Court of Appeals stayed Walker's order, allowing the law to be enforced while the case continues. Smart and Safe Florida alleges that the Secretary of State's office improperly invalidated petitions collected during the injunction period, arguing that those gatherers were lawfully registered at the time. State attorneys dispute that claim, saying Walker's injunction did not temporarily make out-of-state circulators eligible. So this is the battle continues on in Florida, just like it does in Texas and everywhere else. I think Florida is really on the verge of passing adult use. It's going to happen, whether it's this year or in 28 or in 2030. You know, you can't stop the tide here, but you know, DeSantis and a lot of these guys are trying to do what they can to thwart it. I signed a petition not too long ago. I asked the gentleman that was standing on a street corner at a farmer's market where he was from, and he was like Pennsylvania or something, you know? So yes, there are out-of-state people coming here. Are they probably being paid off by some MSOs? Probably, but you know, it stands to benefit a Florida resident and anyone visiting Florida. And most other laws for other industries do not require this level of verification for signed petitions. But because it's cannabis, they are just putting us through, you know, through the gauntlet here. I think the latest incantation of the petition that I received just earlier this week required that the entire bill verbatim be posted with it, and you have to read it before you sign it. And, you know, you have to show that you're either a Florida resident or a registered voter in Florida, which I get it. Florida's a, you know, big transient state. A lot of people are seasonal here or retire here. But it's really just trying to delay the inevitable. You know, it's interesting to challenge it, to say that, oh, I mean, they're doing everything they can, whether it's handwriting or signatures, or you weren't at that address when we followed up, you know, send a follow-up letter. They're just trying to deny what's really going to happen. And obviously I'm biased. But what do you guys think, without throwing Texas or Venezuela into this argument? Sorry, Shaun.
Oh, man.
Well, this points out one of the parts of our Constitution that has been troubling over the last, say, couple decades. And it's that the states control the election, the election process. The Congress can step in and do some things. Basically, that's a 10th Amendment right. We leave that to the states. And one state will do it one way, and people used to another state do it a different way, and both of them are perfectly legal under the Constitution. It just makes things complicated here, because it's obvious that some powerful forces don't want this to happen. So you hire an attorney, and there's plenty of asshole attorneys out there you can find who will look for every single stupid argument they can find, throw in a brief, and go in and file about it. Was it a lawful elector? You know, was this somebody have the lawful vote right in Florida? If he did, it should count. The rest of this is superfluous. But if they have a rule that you can't solicit these if you're not a citizen, that's a state matter. That, even though it sounds stupid, unless the Congress steps in and does something about this, the states can make up their own rules. As frustrating as it is, the initiative process is one of those areas where you really get to see who doesn't want this to happen and what they're willing to do to fight about it, rather than, you know, accept and acknowledge that people want this. And you can only delay the inevitable so long. The toothpaste is out of the tube. People want it. And the next time, if you make them jump through all these hoops and they win, now what are they going to do? They're going to go in and claim that this violates the federal Constitution somehow?
What does it matter? What does it matter, the residency of the person, you know?
It 100% matters. 100% matters. It 100% matters, Chris. 100%, because you are only allowed to vote in states, in a state which you are a resident voter in. We can't have people having residency in two states and voting in a presidential election in both states. And so that's
yes. But for a signer on the petition, yes. But for the person just holding the clipboard that's asking, hey, do you want to, you know, sign up on a petition to legalize marijuana? What does that matter? It could be an automated kiosk made in China with a computer screen.
No, we're trying to get rid of those things, Chris.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Chris. And then at the same time, an automated, you brought up the very reason why there's some suspicion about residency or marking, you know,
I mean,
organization and affiliation, especially when it comes to elections. I think Dale kind of hit it all on the head. And hey, don't be mad because my ADD allows me to connect dots. As Dale's opened and said, when we have a union of 50 different states with different regulations, we have to be able to look at the bigger picture when we're all going to work together. That is also essential because we've globalized over the last few decades. So you do have to understand how all these things impact each other. Does every operator in cannabis need to understand that? No. And you're right, I do pull out a bit, but that's just the power of ADD, man.
All right. Well, here's the thing that I found super interesting in regards with this article that I found that as hearing it and reading it, I was like, what in the hell is that? And what in the hell is the definition of that? And you know what that was, Chris? An inactive voter. I have never heard that term before in a process of removing signatures. And I think that we need to get this status over here in California, personally. And so I did some research on what an inactive voter is classified in Florida. And it's basically a voter is designated as inactive when they are sent an address confirmation final notice, typically triggering a undeliverable mail or other address verification efforts, or they do not return the confirmation page within 30 days. It goes on to continue. There's a whole bunch of stuff. I'm not going to read all of this, but it says to return a voter active status for an inactive voter, they can update their voter registration record confirming their current address, request a vote by mail ballot and confirm address, or appear to vote and confirm their address. They say that if no such action is taken and the voter remains inactive through 2 consecutive federal general elections without voting, updating registration, or requesting a vote by mail ballot, their registration is removed from the statewide system no later than the end of the calendar year following the second election. At that point, they become an ineligible voter and must re-register to vote again. I think we need this in California because we need to purge our voter rolls here. I think.
But you said you were saying this would be something that you would use for people to sign petitions. I think that's a step too far.
No. That's not what I said at all. What I said is that is they use this term in the article, saying that they purged 70,000 voters from the petitions because they were classified on the Florida voter rolls as inactive voters. And so I have never heard that term before, inactive voter. And so it's a Florida thing. And so that is what it actually means. It means if you have not voted in 2 consecutive federal general elections. That is fascinating.
No, you shouldn't be disqualified from signing a petition for not voting in
if you're not voting, you shouldn't be able to sign a petition. Because you have to use. Hold on, Shaun. When you sign a petition, when you sign
to vote and you're a legal citizen, whether you voted in a past election or not, I think you should still be able to have your voice heard.
This is the thing. When you put,
if you're creating outright petition fraud, like I'm putting a different address, because they're not verifying anything else, and I could put my name on different petitions with different addresses, sure. But if I'm a legal resident and I've registered to vote, just because I haven't voted in the last 2 elections, in my opinion,
Florida
shouldn't
law
disqualify me from being able to sign a petition because of something.
Then Florida should change that law, or you should work to change that law in Florida, because that's the law of the land of Florida, and I think we need that law here in California. I think that would be amazing.
That's weird. It's quite totalitarian. I
think it's a fantastic law. I think it makes total sense.
I would imagine it would be younger voters who get disenfranchised because young college students move around a lot. Not everybody tracks that, and federal elections are only so many years. You're going to disqualify them from local petitions.
If they don't vote in 2 consecutive. Hold on a second, Shaun. Let's be realistic about this. 2 consecutive federal elections. There's only one federal thing that everyone votes on within your state, which is in essence is the presidency. So that means that they haven't voted in 8 years, Shaun. So yes, if you haven't voted or updated yourself in 8 years, then yeah, pull your ass off the voter rolls.
Right to speech, and your signature on a petition is your speech. No, it's absolutely
I totally disagree with that.
We can disagree.
Yep. I totally disagree with that. I think this is a fantastic thing. I think we need this in California.
The First Amendment violation, but okay.
No, it's not.
Well, what we need to do, Jason, is we need the air to breathe, water to drink, and food.
Yeah.
You want this. We don't need this in California. We don't need it anywhere. Your right to vote is either your right to vote or it's not. Okay? And that's a problem I have. I mean, you could go for 10 sections and not vote and say, all right, I'm going to vote in this one. How many people didn't vote in the last election because they made a statement? I don't want to vote for either one of these son of a bitches.
Dale,
okay?
Dale, that's not the point.
Said that?
That's not. You're missing my point, Dale.
Exactly the same.
No. You're missing my point. If they don't want to be an inactive voter, all that they have to do is go and re-register or send them and say, hey, you know what? I'm still here. I'm still an active voter. That is not that difficult for people to do once in 8 years. That's not a big use of time.
Jason, it's not for you to qualify.
Difficulty is not the test. Difficulty is not the test. I'm sorry, that's just not how it works.
Not only difficulty is not the test.
Once you turn 18, you're eligible to vote. Once you register to vote, okay, now what are the special rules to maintain it? Mm-hmm. That's a state law issue.
I agree with that, yes.
Your right to vote is not like a driver's license. If you get in trouble, we're going to take it away from you. I mean, yeah, I lost my right to vote because I got sent to prison.
Again, Dale, the right has not been taken away. They can easily go and renew and fill out a voter registration card and have the right to vote. Their right is not being taken away. They're being removed from the voter roll.
But in the context of this petition,
signing a petition.
Hold on, one at a time.
I was saying in the context of this petition with such a tight deadline, what was it, February 1st? Most people aren't going to be able to do that in time. So there's certainly some manipulation going on that they're really highlighting this specific rule for this specific petition to try to block this initiative.
I find
right, and we're conflating right to vote and the right to speech, which is your right to sign a petition. Your right to sign a petition in the present day, not based on if you have the only thing precluding you from your right to that on right to vote is criminality, which shouldn't, if you've done your time, you should be allowed to vote once you're out.
I agree with that.
But that's my personal stance.
I agree with that.
Everyone has the right to speech. I
think you should be able to still vote in jail.
Their past was, especially if there's no actual criminal history. And then your state local municipality rights should not be infringed because you didn't vote in a federal election. This doesn't make sense. And yes, even though you can fix it, you're also relying on the system being perfect. The government keeping updated addresses and records. Come on.
I think I personally
registration to vote right before the critical moment to do it.
I don't know. I personally like this. I like this policy. I think that California needs it. We need to purge our voter rolls here. We totally need to purge our whole voter rolls here in California. But nonetheless, I have one final story for you guys, and I think we're going to be able to end the show on a happy note, possibly. Well, it depends. It depends on how emotionally triggered Shaun gets, but we'll see.
Hey, I was allowed to be emo today. Okay, I did a lot of work. That was a lot of work.
It's cute. It's cute. But there's a bipartisan bill that aims to delay federal hemp product ban until November of 2028, which, how I see it, that would make it a presidential issue in the 2028 presidential race, but we'll move on. That's just my thought. House Representative James Baird, a Republican from Indiana, and a quartet of bipartisan co-sponsors are attempting to throw the U.S. hemp industry an extended lifeline on an impeding product ban. Baird introduced legislation on January 12th to delay the implementation of the federal ban on intoxicating hemp products until November of 2028, 2 years after the ban is supposed to go into effect. The two-page legislation, the Hemp Planting Predictability Act would amend the Agricultural Rural Development, Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, and Related Agency Appropriations Act of 2026, which President Donald J. Trump signed into law in November, ending the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. While the FDA spending bill included nearly $26.7 billion with a B dollars in non-defense funding, it also contained a provision to close what Senator Marijuana Mitch McConnell called an unintended loophole in the 2018 Farm Bill that led to intoxicating cannabinoid products proliferating in often unregulated retail settings and online throughout the United States. The 2018 Farm Bill federally legalized commercial cultivation of hemp, but did not regulate finished goods. Baird indicated his intentions for the Hemp Planting Predictability Act are focused on supporting American farmers. In a quote, he says, "Planting and growing crops requires planning well in advance," Baird said. Congress created a regulatory environment in the 2018 Farm Bill that allowed for certain investments, and farmers were operating within this environment. The hemp provision included in the continuing resolution and appropriations bills passed in November of 2025 disrupted planting decisions that had already been made. Congress should not have passed such a sweeping policy change that upends a growing industry. Instead, Congress should have given farmers more time, creating a more stable environment for farmers to modify their future planting decisions. I am proud to introduce this legislation to ensure farmers have predictability and sufficient time to adjust to new laws that affect their livelihood. As part of the deal to reopen the government, the hemp-related language in the FDA spending bill will recriminalize most consumable hemp products, and on today's market by November 13th, 2026. Products will be banned if they contain cannabinoids that are synthesized or manufactured outside of the plant, better known as Delta-8 THC. Cannabinoids that are not capable of being naturally produced by the plant, like HHC. More than 0.3% total THC, including THCA or other cannabinoids with similar effects, or more than 0.4 milligrams of total THC per container. The legislation Baird introduced on Monday would simply kick the effective date 2 years down the road by striking the 365 days and inserting 3 years in Section 781 of the federal appropriations package. The legislation would also help hemp-derived product brands. In a quote, "The Baird hemp extension is a positive step that brings greater stability to a fast-growing sector of the U.S. economy," Nowadays CEO and co-founder Justin Tywell told Cannabis Business Times. And Nowadays is a growing leader in the hemp-derived beverage market. In a quote, "It ensures businesses, farmers, and retailers can continue operating responsibly as policymakers work to establish a new effective framework for hemp category," he said. The bill recognizes that good regulation takes time and that by providing a longer transition period, it creates space for clear standards that protect consumers and support long-term growth across the hemp industry. Baird's bills co-sponsored by House Oversight and Accountability Chair James Comer, Republican from Kentucky, House Agriculture Committee Ranking Member Annie Craig, a Democrat from Minnesota, and Representative Gabe Evans, a Republican from Colorado, along with Tim Moore, a Republican from North Carolina. In an additional quote, "This is common sense extension, gives farmers and America's hemp industry the time they need to adapt while Congress works to establish a clear, responsible regulatory framework," Comer said. "I have championed the hemp industry since my time as Kentucky's Commissioner of Agriculture and remain committed to bipartisan solutions in Washington that support our local farmers and provide certainty for this growing industry." And while Baird ultimately voted in favor of reopening the government in November, he was among 13 GOP House members who signed a letter in September opposing the federal ban on intoxicating hemp products that was under consideration earlier in the year. In a quote, "If the language contains in the FY26 Agriculture FDA Appropriations Bill were to become law, it would deal a fatal blow to the American farmers supplying the regulated hemp industry and small businesses and jeopardize tens of billions of dollars in economic activity around the country," the letter signers wrote. Comer and Moore also signed the letter, which pointed to more than 70% of hemp acres grown in the U.S. being dedicated to cannabinoid production versus grain or fiber. And according to the USDA National Hemp Report published in April of 2025, the Midwest Hemp Council, a trade organization with members in 23 states, applauded Baird for introducing the bipartisan legislation on Monday. This article kind of goes on and on and on, but that's really the meat and potatoes of this thing, and I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this.
Not policy articles going on and on and on and on.
Yeah, it goes on and on and on. Oh, but it does mention, and I think this is worth mentioning, that also in November, Representative Nancy Mace, a Republican from South Carolina, introduced the American Hemp Protection Act, legislation that would repeal the federal government's hemp-related provisions by striking 781 entirely. Yeah, shout out to Nancy Mace.
So I can sell my hemp in Ohio.
No.
What was that, Chris?
Well,
so I can sell my hemp in Ohio.
I'd say you can sell it in a direct to consumer basis. I would say you could get away with it like that, but as far as the regulatory framework that's in place in Ohio currently, no, you can't. Just like you couldn't necessarily sell it in California, but at the same time, if you did direct to consumer, they're not going to be able to catch you doing that, Chris. That's what I'm saying. Or you could just
do D2C in those markets.
That's what I said, direct to consumer.
They're just going to kill their retailers. It's just going to make direct to consumer, one, federally okay, and then two, it's going to kill all the local retailers and that foot traffic and all of that. But the web, you can make money from out of state. We're looking at the same thing with the taxes. If Dishes does what Dishes might do, which I don't think they will, especially this is good news. We have been talking about the extension. Yay, Haifa. I'm going to shout you out. Haifa's been behind a lot of this extension language. And advocating. They are out there right now in DC, now, talking to your legislators. I know they're out there for the next 3 days. And it's good that this has been pushed forward. We're talking about extensions. It'll likely get approved. I really don't see anything too controversial about this. And President Trump himself did say that hemp needs to be evaluated. And I think he understands this is a multifaceted issue because Governor Abbott understands that. And that's why he vetoed the ban here in Texas. And we're still having these conversations. So I appreciate this news coming out right now. It's going to make arguments a lot easier with Dishes and make it a lot easier to convince them that the very little regulation, just age gate it. Just age gate it. Leave it alone.
Well, Brian Dabrowski in the chat, he says, now we get to see if they voted to ban hemp or reopen the government. Those hemp haters are not going to be happy. And he is right, and I think I do agree with you, Shaun, to some degree. I think that this ultimately will pass. I think the Republicans and the president will probably get behind this, because then that way a bill that President Trump initially signed won't be rescinded during his term. Now, if whether or not we're able to repeal the 22nd Amendment and get him a third term, that's a whole nother question that we're still gonna watch and carry. I said that just for Dale. Just because it gets Dale's goat every time.
I don't think he would want to reverse course on his 2018 policy. I agree that typically once he says something, he likes to double down on it. And this would be the channel that he could do that.
Yep.
And I know that marijuana folks are like, but this will actually help you a lot because 280E won't apply to you in these medical rules unless you're licensed through the appropriate channels and FDA approved. And then you have your state rules, but I think pharmaceutical, you're going to see a lot of lawsuits so they can protect their interests because this is for them really. Hemp can be for us. We just need to figure out that language. And there are, to help soothe you, this hemp extension was going forward. And I've seen myself, the RAMP Act, which is being circulated by the marijuana people, to repeal arbitrary marijuana policy. We both have the same end goals. It's just how are we going to get there? Instead of thinking it's a this or a that, it can be my favorite thing here, yes and, it's this and that.
You can get with this or you can get with that. Or you can
be smart and try to figure out the best parts of this and that and move forward on this, So I think it's a good thing, and hopefully we'll get the RAMP Act going forward. I still need to dig into the nuance of that, but repealing arbitrary policy always sounds great to me. I don't think anybody will be against that. Really smart naming on that one, too. We'll find out. This does help. This does help the conversation with local state policymakers, though.
Mm-hmm. I think it does. We shall see. We shall see. Any final thoughts on this, Chris or Dale?
Just more time, I think.
I'm going to tell. I didn't mean to cut you off, Chris. But my crystal ball is just not real good. I mean, Shaun said earlier that hemp's going to probably be the passenger car that takes this thing across the finish line, because now it has not only money, but it has political backers, and it's not marijuana. And you keep hoping that at some point someone's going to wake up and realize what you've been doing is just incredibly illogical and stupid. It's hurt a lot of people, and there's money to be made here. And what are we really arguing about? No kids are dying. The highways aren't blood red. The sky didn't fall. Move on.
Yeah, my crystal ball is milky white with smoke till I pull the carb and clear it. So I don't know what's going to happen in 2 years.
Fair enough. We're going to see. We're going to keep on monitoring this. Hopefully this bill goes through. And like I said, and then that way it makes the whole hemp thing a 2028 issue. And that would be real interesting to see what Republicans and Democrats are going to use as their talking points.
They're going to become, I'll tell you, the blue state programs are going to become punching bags for everything that you guys have.
Oh, it'd be great to watch.
They're going to take all of those points and they're going to use them against them.
Oh, that'll be so good.
I try to tell you all what's coming down the pipe.
So great. And on that, thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast. And big shout out to our audience and supporters for tuning in daily and listening to the insanity that is the developing cannabis industry. Huge thank you to Catalyst Cannabis for helping us keep the lights on over here, and thank you to our correspondents for being absolutely amazing. And thank you to Cannabis Sativa L for giving us a reason to do this every day. And thank you to Cloud Media Partners Elias and Gabriel. They're somewhere in the metaverse. And thank you all for tuning in and getting high at 9 with us. We are America's #1 daily cannabis news show. Patented and trademarked.